Hey guys, you're watching the Designs to Desire channel, where together we'll make this world look more desirable one design at a time. Today I want to address the question that all freelancers have, which is how to price your freelance services. There's a lot of information out there on different pricing strategies, so I want to talk about which ones I've tried and which ones have worked for me through my freelance experience. Let's begin. When I started out freelancing, part of the preparation I had to do was to determine how much I would charge my services. I thought, okay, well, I have two different options, project-based or an hourly rate. When I thought about project-based, I thought, okay, well, the way to go about charging per project was to estimate how many hours a certain project would take and then multiply that by an hourly rate. But since I was just starting out, I found it difficult to predetermine how many hours a certain project would take. So as a result, I decided to go with charging at an hourly rate. So now I had to determine what that hourly rate would be. So what I did was I researched online some competitors in my area and found out how much they were charging. But this didn't help me very much because the price ranges I found varied dramatically to very low to very high prices. So I thought, okay, well, how much experience do I have? I wasn't just fresh out of school. I actually had a few years of professional experience under my belt. So I thought, okay, well, I could therefore charge a little higher than the lower end range. I didn't feel like I was at a senior level, so I decided to price myself kind of somewhere in the middle. So I basically looked at my competitors, my level of experience, and I also looked at how much I was making at my previous 9-to-5 job. There are many sources out there that provide different approaches to arriving at an hourly rate, which personally I didn't use because I felt comfortable with my hourly rate that I determined through looking at my competitors and through my professional experience. But I will go over with you one common approach at arriving at an hourly rate. It does involve a lot of calculations, so I recommend grabbing your calculator if you're not good at mental math. All right, so let's take a look at this approach. First, you want to determine how much you want to make per year. Now, let's be realistic here. I would recommend determining what you need to make in the year and then maybe adding a little more just in case there's some things that some unexpected expenses. To determine this amount, you'll need to calculate your yearly expenses and take into consideration any future potential larger purchases like a computer or a car. And don't forget to take taxes into consideration. Next, determine how many hours you expect to work per year. So start by thinking that a standard work week is 8 hours per day. Multiply that by 5 days in a week, and then multiply that by 52 weeks in a year. But hold on, let's take vacation into consideration. So let's say you want 3 weeks of vacation. So that's actually 49 hours of work. So let's do that again. 8 hours times 5 days a week times 49 weeks will give you 1,960 hours of work in the year. And now you would take that desired annual salary, so let's say the $45,000, and divide it by the number you got for the hours worked. So in our example, it would be $45,000 divided by 1,960 hours, and that'll give you about $23 an hour. Now I know this number seems kind of low, but what I think a lot of people forget to take into consideration is that the number of hours worked is for paid client work. So realistically, are you gonna have 8 hours a day, 5 days a week of paid client work? Probably not. Yes, you'll likely be working for that amount of time, if not more, but unfortunately you won't be paid for all that time. So let's just take one full day where you'd be working on things like business development and not paid client work. So let's revisit that calculation again. 8 hours of paid client work per day times 4 days a week times 49 weeks in the year, assuming that you're going to take 3 weeks of vacation. So now that comes out to 1,568 hours a year. So let's take that $45,000 a year divided by this 1,568, and now that gives us a number closer to about $29 an hour. So these numbers will of course vary per individual. What I would suggest is plugging in your own numbers. Start by calculating your own expenses and determining an annual salary, calculating the number of hours that you'll work on paid client work in a day, in a week, and then in a year, and then do this calculation. And let me know if it will help determine what your hourly rate would be. So now the question still remains on whether you should charge your clients on this hourly rate or on project-based. As I mentioned, when I first started out, I decided to go with the hourly rate route, and that's how I started charging my clients. However, I soon discovered that a lot of my clients preferred or felt more comfortable with a fixed amount. Because when I told them my hourly rate, they were uneasy about not knowing how much they would pay in the end. A lot of them would ask, well, how long is it going to take you? So I then started to introduce project-based rates, which I found that many clients did prefer, as it helped them for their budgeting purposes. The risky thing for us freelancers when pricing on a project base is that you might go over the amount of hours that you estimated. So for example, let's say you're given a project and you estimate it's going to take you 10 hours. So based on an hourly rate of $30, you price that project at $300, a fixed price of $300. And then when you're working on the project, if it ends up taking you double the amount of time, that just reduces your hourly rate to half. So you end up feeling like you got paid $15 an hour. So that's the risky part of pricing your work at a fixed project base. So I weighed out the pros and cons of both charging at an hourly rate or a project-based rate. And what I found worked best for me was to combine these two methods together. So what I mean by this is I would provide my clients with a fixed rate for that project. Again, let's say $300. And any potential revisions are charged at an hourly rate. So this is something I state in the contract. It stated that, okay, this project is going to be charged at a rate of $300. So I send them the results, it's $300. If they're okay with it and there's no revisions, that's great. It's that fixed price of $300. If, however, they come back and there are revisions, that's when the clock starts and then they're charged at an hourly rate. I do include one set of minor revisions free, and I define what minor revisions means. I define it by 30 minutes of time. So let's say I send them the project, the final file, and they have some minor changes that won't take me too much time. So again, I define that at 30 minutes of time. That's still charged at the fixed rate I priced them at. If, however, the revisions are a lot more than that, then that's when I start the clock, and then it's a charge. Then I charge them at my hourly rate. So that's what I am using for most of the new projects that come my way. However, for some clients, more my regular ones, I am charging them at an hourly rate just because they have a lot of different type of work for me that comes in on a daily basis that they don't know way in advance, and that just helps for them to continue to send me work daily or every other day, and I do it quickly so that I just track my time and charge them and then invoice them every week or every second week, and that works really well with them. So the third and final approach I want to talk about today is called value-based pricing. It's a little more similar to project-based than an hourly rate, but it's essentially pricing a project based on how much value or almost like revenue the client will gain from your service. So let's take a logo design as an example. So instead of charging them maybe $300, if you estimate it's going to take you 10 hours at $30 an hour, with value-based pricing, you're likely going to charge them more along the lines of $1,000 to $5,000, because especially with a logo, I mean, it's very hard to calculate how much revenue the company will gain from your logo design, especially with a logo design. Something like maybe a flyer is a little more easier to estimate, but it's essentially estimating how much value they're really going to gain from this logo. It's basically a branding identity, right? So with logo design, you can justify that a lot higher than with anything else. But basically that's the thinking behind it. This is not an approach I've ever used before, so I'm not going to talk about it any more than I have already, but I will leave a link in the description section below if you want to look up more information about it. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope it helped you in determining how much you're gonna charge for your freelance services. And if you heard of or maybe use a different type of pricing approach, then share it with us as well in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't already, and check out some of the other awesome videos on my channel. As always, thanks for watching.